So this is the final night on our week of conferences for the Trafford Youth Cabinet. So far, we've covered a variety of issues, but this is the final night. We have a very exciting guest, which is Hebe from the Proud Trust. Someone excellent who I've worked briefly with a few times in the past year, and really knows her stuff, unsurprisingly, about LGBTQ plus and the related topic area. I'm Tom. I work at Trafford Youth Cabinet, running the ship somewhat and just trying to keep them all in line. And tonight we have as our wonderful youth hosts, Millie and Maddie. So if you guys just want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Millie. I'm 13 and I go to youth cabinet.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Maddie. I'm 13, pronouns she, her, and I go to Trafford Youth Cabinet. Yeah.
So Lauren, do you want to say a few words about who you are?
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm attempting to do the technical stuff tonight, attempting being the word because it's gone wrong a few nights. I work for Youth Focus Northwest, which is a charity that runs youth work across the Northwest, and we work with all the youth cabinets and a number of different projects. So that's me. I was also an ex-member of Trafford Youth Cabinet and MYP back when I was younger.
Hiya, yeah, my name's Hebe. I use she, her pronouns. I work at the Proud Trust, and one of the exciting things I get to do is run Rainbow Reflections, which is our Trafford youth group. So in real life, we get to be Trafford Youth Cabinets, like roomies and neighbours. And yeah, that's the main thing that I do. Can people see this? Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, my name's Hebe. I work for a youth charity, youth organisation called the Proud Trust. So we are the home of LGBT plus youth. So LGBT plus, we define that as lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and other identities such as asexual, intersex, questioning, non-binary. The list can go on. So we just have that plus there in LGBT plus, just to recognise that many young people at our groups do identify maybe within and outside of kind of the traditional LGBT plus acronym. So thank you, Tom, for inviting me here today. As I said, I run our Trafford youth group, which is called Rainbow Reflections. So usually we'd be based at the talk shop, meeting every Wednesday, but at the moment we're meeting online. So I'll be talking to you about that a little bit later. I've got a quiz of some Manchester themed, so LGBT themed Manchester facts. So what I'll do is I'll invite people to, some of them are multiple choice, some of them are just having a guess. So if anyone wants to have a guess at any of the answers, you can type in the chat, if that's all right. So first question is, how many LGBT plus people do you think live in Greater Manchester? So does anyone know what the overall population of Manchester is? So if anyone wants to say in the chat. So if you were going to guess how many LGBT people live in Greater Manchester? So this figure has been put together from lots of different surveys. At the moment, there's not a lot of data other than, you know, what people want to give up about themselves, about how they identify. So there probably is more LGBT plus people than this figure shows, but this is what was known at the time. Tom, you're saying at least 3. You're right there. At least 3 or maybe 20,000. That was beautiful. Lauren, you're saying 15,000. Freya, you're going bold with 200,000. Any other guesses?
What is
from
the
the room.
population of Greater Manchester?
So I can tell you that the population of Greater Manchester is over 2.2 million. Thank you, Freya. So lots. Again, yeah, it's just kind of, there's lots of people. So in Greater Manchester, so Freya, you were right, actually. So Greater Manchester is home to an estimated 215,000 LGBT plus people. And just think that's only the people who, when they were asked at the time of the survey, either willingly kind of disclosed that information or was, you know, maybe out or considered themselves LGBT plus at that time. And that's more people than there are in the whole of Rochdale. And again, Rochdale's pretty big. And to put it in our Trafford perspective, there are just over 240,000 people in Trafford. So imagine if you put all the LGBT people in Greater Manchester in a room, it would be the whole of Trafford. That's quite a lot of people. Does that surprise anyone to kind of to think that there's that many LGBT plus people in Greater Manchester? Like out of the 2.2 million people in Greater Manchester.
Yeah, I think it surprises me, but I still am a little bit shocked by just quite the number of people in Greater Manchester. So
It's a bit overwhelming.
That's about 1/10 of people, right?
I think so.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Someone who's better at maths can probably
Yeah,
say
it's about 1/10 of people, just under.
Why doesn't that surprise you, Millie?
Well, I go to a girls' school and about half of my friends identify as bisexual or lesbian. So
so yeah, maybe if you know, if like you are an LGBT plus person or you know lots of LGBT plus people, it might not come as a surprise to you. I don't think there's probably many people now in the world who can say that they've never met an LGBT plus person. You might have never knowingly met an LGBT plus person. So you might have met someone. They might not have told you how they identify when you first meet them. But everyone, probably, I would feel confident saying, probably everyone in the world has met an LGBT plus person. And very likely in Greater Manchester, they have as well. Okay. Okay, the first official Pride that took place in Manchester. So this is a multiple choice for us. So do you think the first official Pride that took place in Manchester was a jumble sale, a fancy dress ball? Oh no, there's 2 fancy dress balls. Just pretend. Just pretend that C is a cabaret. Or D, was it a parade through the city? Okay. These it's called. Right, Tom, you're thinking you've gone for a strong fancy dress ball, being that at the moment it's 2 of the options. Jumble sale, Millie, you're saying that's a very Manc thing to do.
Definitely.
Fancy dress ball, parade through the city. Okay.
Oh, I can just picture I can picture many people I know just like parading through the streets and then finding a jumble sale and then just stopping.
Just great. Jumble sale. Just think, yeah, beautiful. Or a tombola. We love a good tombola in Manchester. So it was actually a jumble sale. So the first Manchester Pride Festival. So now people would probably know Manchester Pride as, you know, a lovely, vibrant parade through the city. But one of the reasons Manchester Pride began was as like a fundraiser for people who were affected by HIV and AIDS. So it was a kind of fundraiser jumble sale along Canal Street. I just think that's just one of my favourite facts. I like that we started as a jumble sale. And I think, yeah, someone said it's a very Manc thing to do to have a jumble sale. Okay, the world's first substantial transgender memorial is in Manchester. Where in the city? Can you find it?
Oh, I've seen this. I don't know where it is though.
Anyone? Just have a guess. So you can see it's maybe in a green space in the city at the moment. Not got many green spaces in the city. We've got a guess of Sackville from Caroline, Castlefield from Tom, Northern Quarter. These are great guesses, folks. Anyone else want to put their hat in the ring and guess where is this memorial? Piccadilly Gardens, Sackville Gardens. So it is Sackville Gardens. So Sackville Gardens is, so I guess I mentioned Canal Street. So that's where the first Lovable Jumble Sale took place. It's also where there are lots of kind of LGBT like pubs and bars and kind of spaces where people gather. And the Sackville Gardens is where quite a lot of kind of like LGBT themed bits of history kept. So there's like a Friends of Sackville Gardens who look after the gardens. And I've got a picture here of the Alan Turing statue. So if anyone's been to Sackville Gardens, you might have sat next to this statue and wondered, who even is that? Or seen them. Sometimes Alan is surrounded by flowers. Sometimes he's been decorated with lipstick and other things like that. He's known to have worn lots of different things in his time as a statue. But he was, he was a pioneer in computer science and was quite crucial in like the Second World War. And he was also a gay man. He did a lot of work in Manchester. So I think for lots of people in Manchester, he's a bit of like a, I guess sort of like a mank icon as well. And on the floor is a little plaque about him, but there's also like a rainbow mosaic, and around the city centre you can still see there are some of these rainbow mosaics dotted around. Some of them have got poetry in them as well. Okay, so what does the Proud Trust do? I feel like this page shouldn't be empty. Okay, so at the Proud Trust, so we run youth groups and we provide peer support. We manage the LGBT plus centre in Manchester, and we have a cafe there. One of the big things we've been doing over the past few years is we've been building up a brand new shiny LGBT plus centre, which is being built now on Sydney Street in Manchester, so just across from All Saints Park. And a nice fact about our old building was that it was purpose built as an LGBT plus centre in 1988, and it was funded by the council as well. So lots of people, when they come into our building, would ask if it used to be like a garage. Lots of lovely kind of odd suggestions like that, but it was always an LGBT plus centre, which is just quite a nice thing, because I think lots of the time we kind of make community spaces by maybe taking over buildings that are empty, but it's nice that was a purpose-built space. I guess as you can see from the number of LGBT plus people in Manchester, it's probably a good argument for having a place where we can kind of go and gather. And we like a cafe because we love food. Yeah, we do training and events. So at the moment, we've not really been able to go into places and do training. So we've tweaked our training offer, and we've been able to offer lots of training online and doing lots of events. So we had like a Pride week in the summer, and next week we're going to have a winter Pride, because if there was ever a year where we needed multiple prides, it's this year. So we're kind of dubbing winter Pride like cozy Pride, the Pride you can bring your hot water bottle to as well. And yeah, we did an event called Rainbow Playground a few years ago. So that was like our like massive youth Pride event. So we had lots of different organisations and young people come to the centre of Manchester from all over, really, to have like a really big proper Youth Pride Day at MMU and then at home as well. So 42nd Street brought their like big bus. There was a climbing wall. It was just, yeah, it was such a lovely day. Yeah, we like a good event, and usually every year we do something called Pride Youth Games. So last year we were at the Helly Hansen Centre in Salford, where we kind of got took to the water, and that's an opportunity for LGBT plus people to get together and do a bit of sport. And sometimes it's making sport as silly as possible and as friendly as possible, because for lots of LGBT young people, and probably maybe young people in general as well, PE in school might not be your favourite thing to do. But you might actually really love sport or just being daft. So we had one person last year who was really worried about getting in the water and going kayaking. And then they were stood on the edge of the kind of little decking, and they just shouted, "I'm facing all my fears," and kind of jumped into the kayak. So they had a great time. But trying to have events like this that make sure that if you're an LGBT plus young person and maybe like you've experienced like LGBT phobia at school, particularly in things like sport, it's just making sure that like no one's missing out on opportunities that they might want to access, and providing just a kind of refresh view maybe of things like sport, so that we don't go through life just thinking, oh, sport's not great. We might just personally feel like that, but just making sure that's not only informed by like a negative experience that we had, or it might help us pursue different things when we're adults. Yeah, we do lots of campaigns. We love to get political at our groups. We do research. So like I said, in terms of sport, we've done a few big pieces of research about LGBT plus young people's experiences in sport, experiences at school, like the different ways people are defining themselves. And I can give a link at the end. We've got links to the different bits of research that we've done on our website, but we're particularly proud to have been involved in quite a lot of like youth-led research projects, or like where we've really been able to get stuck in and guide some of the research that we've been part of. So there's a research project called Queer Futures, and then Queer Futures 2. So we were quite key in helping shape what some of that research looked like, and that was looking at young LGBTQ people's mental health. So when they did their part 2, we helped them create a board game to use in their focus groups as kind of a nice alternative way of getting people talking and getting people thinking about what services were there for people and where the gaps were. So we like to get a bit geeky as well. The main bit of geekery that we have is creating resources. We've got resources coming out of our ears. It's just, I think in my role, it's one of the really joyful things that I get to do sometimes, but we're big believers in sharing the wealth, sharing the resources, so that people can have access to ideas you maybe haven't considered before, or access to information that isn't always out there immediately. So I would say pretty much vast majority of our resources on our website are available free, and kind of keeping those open access is quite important. With things that are related to our training, that is something that we do charge for, because we have to try and value that work as well. But a lot of the stuff that we use in our training is still available for free on our website, because we just want everyone to be able to access stuff, because otherwise where'd be the fun in making it? That's what I think anyway. So something we think about a lot, being an LGBT plus youth charity and running LGBT plus youth groups, we probably think a lot about, well, who are we? That might be a question that you're asking yourself before you come. Sure, go, well, God, who even am I? I don't know. We might have loads of questions. We might feel like it's a load of question marks, or a lot of, well, I'm not really sure, or I feel sure about some things, but not others. But we all belong to lots of different communities. And it can feel like all those different communities have different ideas and thoughts, maybe about the world, about other communities, about our identities. And that could be our family, where we live, our age, our race, our gender, our sexuality, or maybe a faith that we belong to. So I think we like to think of that no one is one thing. No one just has one story to tell. There's lots of different things that make up the wonderful people that we are. So what my little activity for us tonight is, I just wondered if we'd have a think about I guess that question, sort of like, who we are. And I wonder if we just take a few minutes to have a reflect. You could draw this, you could note it down. What are some things that make up your identity and who you are? What communities do you belong to? And something we might think about is, are these parts of our identity that we can choose? Are they bits of our identities that we're quite aware of, but other people make us aware that those might be parts of our identity? So we might think about ourselves as being young people, but we might be reminded about that a lot because of maybe people's attitudes towards young people, and maybe some of their prejudices they have about young people. So we might feel very aware in prideful moments, but also maybe less kind of proud moments about parts of our identities. And that's what I mean when I say we might feel quite differently about lots of different parts of our identities at different points in our lives, in different spaces. So when we're with our friends, we might feel really proud of our identities. But maybe if we're somewhere new with people we don't know, we might feel a little bit more apprehensive to share parts of ourselves. So yeah, if we just take, I'm gonna say a minute. Is that all right, Tom? A minute, just have a little think. And like I said, you can draw this out if you want to. Or just have a little bit of time to think. And one way that you could think about these different parts of your identities is that different parts of you is that they could be things that are constantly shifting as well, shifting and changing. So they could be things that feel closer to you sometimes a bit further away. There might be different times when they feel more or less important, more or less relevant to things that are going on in our lives as well. I'm really liking what people have put in. I like that someone has described themselves as a skater. I think that's cool. But do people, I guess, does anyone who's put stuff in the chat, do you feel like, and you can just say in the chat if you want, or just have a think about it, do you feel like quite aware of all these ways that you've described yourself a lot of the time, or is it something just sort of, or does it kind of depend where you are? Like, would you always define yourself as like a skater, or being Manc, or being a musical person, a musician, being bisexual, you know, are these things that feel quite like constant?
I feel like with all identities, it's like they're all, for me, always there, but it's like it's kind of they're brought up by differing things. So if I was in a certain environment, and since you brought it up, if I was walking past a skate park, the inner skater in me will see those people and like instantly link onto it and be like, oh, nice, what's he doing? What's he riding around on? And that would be the kind of the identity I'd take into that interaction. But at the same time, I would say, I don't know, out and about at a gig and I saw someone playing music, I'm not going to go up to them and be like, what kind of skateboarding stuff you into? So I think it's just, for me, it's like they're all always elements of who I am, but it's just like they're only ever brought up by me in the place where I feel, I guess, comfortable with discussing them. And then also just like, if it seems poignant, because I don't know, I always think it's that weird thing where if you do have the identities and you push them out too much, I worry that that becomes somehow, I don't know, almost like showboating.
I think I'm a big believer in it. It's all about balance, you know. I think there might be parts of our identities that can feel a bit like, oh, am I showing too much? But it might just be that we might not see a lot of representation of ourselves. So it might feel like, oh, like I've kind of got to be the only person who feels like they're representing this person right now, or like this identity right now. Yeah, Caroline, I love that you've described yourself as a lover of the sea, and that would definitely be on my list. But yeah, that's interesting as well, that how we identify or define ourselves might be places as well. So a few people said that they're Manx as well. And someone said, yeah, that it depends on who you're with, how much you might show or not show about yourself. But I guess I'm a big believer in, you know, if we don't always have to show all of ourselves to people. You know, we sometimes have the choice to do that or not do that, or there might just be like, we might be wearing different hats in different places and have different things that we can do. I would say probably more adults, you know, would define themselves by the kind of jobs that we do. I think, especially being a youth worker, I mean, that's one of the best jobs to have. I'm not biased at all. But you know, some people's jobs and things like that might be like a massive part of your life. One, it might be where you spend a lot of your life. But also, yeah, it might be massively important to you, or for some people, sort of defining yourself as like, you know, political. I know someone said at the beginning, you know, that other people that they knew weren't that political, but that they felt quite political. You'd love to see this as a visual. Yeah, go for it. Caroline, I'll say go for it. Imagine all the different things you'd get. I think it would be a treasure trove of stuff. So I just thought I'd show a little example from one of, like I said, we like to geek and make lots of resources. So this is one of the pages of our coming out guide. So in some ways there can never really be a guide to coming out because it's so individual to each person. But sometimes we need somewhere to start with thinking about how we identify. And like I said, that who we are. So the who we are exercise is also from the guide. It's supposed to be like a starting point. So we thought about, right, God, who am I? And you might have questions about, again, any of those identities, but maybe particularly sexuality and gender. You might think, you know, how do I even tell people that that's how I feel? You know, is there anyone else out there like me? You know, will people understand and accept me for what I need to say? And it says here, have you ever told a friend a secret and something about yourself that you were worried, scared, or maybe confused about? Some people might be just still looking for the words to describe themselves as well. So some people, like it says, might feel scared or a bit worried about that, but often it's about how you think someone else is going to react rather than our identities ourselves. There's never anything wrong or negative about being an LGBT plus person, but some of the examples that we might see in the world, or lack of examples of kind of LGBT plus people, so kind of lack of positive representation, might mean that we're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to start this conversation with someone, particularly someone that you know that you really care about, and you care about their opinion, and you know, you're thinking, I want them to accept me. So yeah, some people it can feel like sharing your biggest secret when you're coming out. For other people it's not like that. Like I said, coming out and thinking about identity is just very individual, because we all feel differently. So even, you know, all the people in the world who identify as gay or bisexual, they might all be experiencing those things in very different ways. And also thinking about that whole picture of everyone. So someone who is young and bisexual, and then someone who's maybe older and bisexual, they might be walking and traveling through the world in very different ways. This is a little bit of thinking that we did in our groups about, you know, so we kind of worked backwards, and we thought about either what some of the really good responses we'd had to coming out to people in our lives, and what we maybe would rather people didn't do, or like if people said, right, if I was going to do that again, this is how I'd like it to go down. So we kind of worked backwards, and then we came up with some suggestions. So one of the big things was, you know, without your friend coming out, one thing that you could do to show that you're supportive is challenging homophobia, biphobia and transphobia when you see it, when you hear it, because that could make someone feel just a lot safer as your friend. You might also be making the world a bit of a better place when you challenge that. But we should be thinking about that's important whether or not we're LGBT ourselves, or whether or not we knowingly have any LGBT plus friends. And just making sure, you know, we're talking about LGBT people and celebrities in a positive way. Doesn't mean we have to be a fan of every single LGBT plus person in the world or every celebrity, but just making sure that, you know, our dislike of someone maybe informed a little bit by how we feel about their sexuality. So if someone said, oh, you know, can't believe so and so came out, I don't think it's such a big deal. If you're someone's friend and you're maybe thinking about coming out, or maybe if you are out, that might make you feel a bit uncomfortable. And there's a quote from someone on here that says, before I came out, I said I was in a relationship. My friend said, oh, what's their name? And the fact my friend hadn't said, oh, what's his name or what's her name, made it a lot easier for me. So they didn't assume, they didn't say, oh, you know, so maybe they were a young woman, they didn't say, oh, who's your boyfriend then? Or maybe if you were a young man, they didn't say, oh, you know, who's your girlfriend? So their friend left it kind of quite open there for them to say, you know, what they needed to say. And I guess also in this situation, they could have also been going out with someone who is non-binary, maybe used neutral pronouns as well. So that's something really simple, easy change that you could do if you were talking to people about relationships. You could try and use neutral language. And yeah, the other things that can help is sort of not overreacting. So even if you're jumping for joy for your friend, or you feel a bit conflicted about it, or maybe a bit upset, and it's fine to say we might feel upset if someone comes out to us, not because of their identity, but it might feel a bit confusing, or it might have come as a bit of a surprise for you. But just trying not to overreact. And one of the biggest things people have said in our groups is trying not to ask kind of maybe rude or really personal questions, or you can ask those questions, but someone might say, actually, no, that's a bit personal. But think about what kind of questions you might be comfortable being asked about your identity. And if you have a question that feels a bit personal, you think, well, would I be happy to answer that? Perhaps not. And just sort of saying, I'm there, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. If you want to have a chat, you might say, do you want me to help? Tell our other friends, have you told anyone else that you're LGBT plus? Do you want to keep it between us? What's your plan? That might make someone feel really kind of looked after and cared for. And like, if they were worried, it might make someone feel like, well, in this situation, there wasn't a lot to worry about. The other thing you might say as well, in Trafford, I know about this youth group who meet at the talk shop on Wednesdays. At the moment, we're online. You can see by these lovely people exchanging some squiggles via their laptops. So we've been online since March. We're probably going to be online for a bit longer, I would say. So I just wanted to chat a little bit about our youth groups, so as well as like resources and training and all that sort of stuff. The biggest piece of work that we do is running youth groups. And if you come to our youth groups, here are some things that we be doing together. So we do like food and cooking, obviously, when we're in person. We've got a little kitchen at the talk shop that we've made some cooking triumphs and definitely some cooking disasters with. We do lots of arts and crafts, games, learning about LGBT plus history, listening to music, making music together, making new friends. And the big cloud with the kind of raindrops and the rainbow, you can see that's from when we always have a float or a kind of entry in the Pride Parade, Manchester Pride. So after the jumble sale, they said, right, we should probably have a Pride Parade. And we were like, great, we'll be part of that. So that's one of like the big props that we make. So I am kind of our arty person, or one of our arty people. So I help us make lots of like props and costumes and like weird and wonderful things to carry through the parade with us. But there's lots of different groups to get involved with. So some people might come to their local youth group, and it might also come to like an art group that we run. They might also go to our trans youth groups as well. So you could come to our Trafford youth group maybe, and then you might come to our group afternoon tea, which is for trans and non-binary or young people questioning their gender identity. So there's quite a lot on offer, really. I guess someone was saying earlier about lots of people are involved in lots of extracurricular activities and have lots going on. I think particularly at the moment, we've got a lot of stuff we can keep you busy with, but in like hopefully in like a nice supportive way. Yeah, we do lots of zines, we chat, and like I said, LGBT inclusive sports. So usually in Trafford we'll go to one of the big parks in Sale, and we'll just have many silly games of rounders and just generally sort of running around in a field, because that's what we need to do sometimes. This is a page from our Jamboard. So it's something we've been using while we've been online as a way for us to guess we use it a little bit like if we had, imagine this was like a big sheet of paper or like a big piece of flip chart in our group. So we've been trying to use kind of like a digital version of this. So this was when we were talking about our identities, mainly sexuality, and what kind of words we'd use to do that. And of course we had some memes as well. And as I mentioned before, someone said that they identified as a disaster bisexual, and lots of people agreed that that's how they felt as well. But this was just, I guess, one of the activities that we would do. So if you come to the group, no one's going to be asked to say outright, you know, what's your gender then? So what's your sexuality? But it was also important for us to give space for people to have like confidence and feel comfortable to share parts of their identity. Some people prefer to do that in meme form, and other people might like to do that in another way. So imagine this is a bit like a picture of our group, but just in memes and words about our LGBT plus identities as well. One of the ways we celebrated Pride was making pride flags from things in our houses. So these were some of our flags from Pride this year. So we've got a bisexual and trans flag that someone made in Minecraft. I wish I understood how Minecraft works, but I do not. I'm just very happy that someone could make some flags in them. We've got a non-binary flag made out of some towels, and a plastic wallet, and then a kind of big assorted trans flag and like a big assorted pan flag. So when we went online, we were thinking about, well, not everyone might be able to kind of come into our spaces, and lots of people would wear kind of flag capes when we're with us. That's just like everyday dress when you're in our groups, really. But some people might not feel like as able to do that at home. Some people might not be out, so might not have shared their LGBT plus identity with people that they found themselves spending more time with than they usually would. And just some people just said, I don't have any flags to decorate my space. So we said, right, what can we do? Let's try and make them out of things that we've just got in our spaces. And it was a good way of thinking about that our identities are anywhere that we go, and that we could just, it's also just fun. Someone covered their whole floor and things for for that trans flag, and we had lots of laughs doing it, and it was just a nice thing to do. So if anyone fancies making their own flags at home, I'm gonna say go ahead. It was an absolute blast. Another good one to use is like books. So if you have a look at your books and you can kind of stack them up, and they're quite good for a good old flag image. So these are some, got to have a point, we've got to have some good percentages, some statistics. So this was what young people who come along to like our youth groups, or maybe access like one-to-one support, who've maybe been to our events. People said they felt more like included, involved and accepted. People were able to build more supportive friendships and keeping them strong. So some people who come along to us might say that friendships one of probably the most important things to lots of our young people. But what people often want support with is kind of how to keep those relationships and friendships strong and kind of and long lasting. Whereas lots of people might have found that maybe when they came out, like they lost friends, or they found it a bit more difficult to maintain those relationships. So we do lots of chatting about relationships and kind of how do we navigate those. And through trips and visits and events, people had more access to like art spaces, like theatre, culture, sport and heritage. And that is from, yeah, like I said, places we've been, people who have come in to visit the group. So we've been doing we used the Waterside Arts Centre when there was some building work happening at the talk shop, and then people started just going there just to go in the cafe, and I think just made it like a nice friendly space. And all the people at the Waterside Arts Centre are just proper lovely, and they also started the first Pride in Trafford as well, which happened last year. And yeah, people feeling better about emotional mental health, feeling better about the future, more likely to be kind of given a helping hand to other people. Because if you're not feeling great or like included and accepted like in your communities, you might be less likely to help other people, or feel like there's a place for you to go and get stuck in. And one of the really important things is that people who come to the group say that they felt more able to accept themselves because there's a space to learn about their own gender and sexuality, and also chat a little bit about how other people experience things. Like before I said, someone who is, maybe a younger person who's bisexual, who lives in Trafford, might have a very different experience to someone who's maybe a bit older, bisexual, and lives in Rochdale. So it's a really nice opportunity to I guess imagine it like you're making your world wider. And I think that can only be a good thing. Yeah. And people felt more confident to try new things. Because again, if you're not feeling great, you might not feel like you can put yourself out there or try new things, because it might genuinely feel a bit scary. But if you've got a bit more confidence in yourself, then yeah, many more opportunities that can come your way. And yeah, so people felt they were more likely to challenge all forms of discrimination. So before I said, even if you're not LGBT+, you should be challenging, homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia when you hear it. But also as LGBT people, it's kind of our job to challenge like racism and other kinds of discrimination when we see it. And from being in the groups, people have, like I said, that bit of a wider view of the world, so might kind of consider some of those other kinds of consideration a little bit more. And I feel like we've just got more tools in our tool belt to challenge those things and be a good ally to those other communities that we might belong to, or the other people who we're friends with, who in our groups belong to as well. Okay, so if you want to find out more, we've got a truckload of resources and information on our website, which is theproudtrust.org. And if you go to theproudtrust.org for young people, that has all the information about our youth groups. And there's a tool called Find Your Local Youth Group. So anyone across the UK can put their postcode in there, and you can find where your nearest group is. So not just in Greater Manchester and beyond. You can just see kind of what's going on there, and you can see on there also what schools in your local area might have an LGBT+ group in their school or in their college as well, which has been something we've noticed. I guess over the past year, more and more schools have been kind of putting themselves out there and putting themselves forward and providing a space for LGBT+ students in their schools. And sometimes that's set up by an LGBT+ teacher or an LGBT+ student who's said, I think we need like a positive affirming space in our school. Why don't one lunchtime a month or one lunchtime a week, why don't we create a bit of a space space there, and that generally has a pretty positive impact on other LGBT plus students at a school or at a college. And like I said at the beginning, everyone probably has knowingly or unknowingly met an LGBT plus person. So if some schools and just other places might think, well, there's no LGBT plus people here, it's very likely that they are there. They might not be out as LGBT, but as LGBT people, we're absolutely everywhere. So if you have things like that, it might encourage more people to come out or tell you how they identify. And thinking about like what displays are up in your youth centre, or like I say, like in your school, if you've got like a common room or your classrooms, you know, where can LGBT plus people, particularly young people, where can you kind of see yourself within that? All right, so if it's all right, I'll leave some time for questions. So if anyone has questions, I will do my best to answer them, or put you somewhere that might have another answer. So yeah, how are people asking questions?
There's a question and answer button at the bottom of everyone's screen.
Or the chat as well, in case anyone doesn't know how to access it.
Yeah, or the chat's fine, whichever.
Also, just warning, there aren't that many people who are here. And yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I've got a question though. You know, this is the LGBT plus group that's every Wednesday. How do people access them if they want to join?
So if you want to join our group on a Wednesday, what you can do is you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat now, 1 second. And because we're online, we have to do a form, and we just have to do like a video call first, and that's basically just to see that we're both real. We're both real people. Yeah. So I'll put my email in the chat. So if you're interested, I'll just go back to the last slide as well. So we're currently meeting at 5 till 6:30 every Wednesday. So I know unfortunately it does clash with the fabulous youth cabinet. But obviously that's one of the main reasons why we were room neighbours, because we met at sort of similar times, and that was a nice way of us sort of meeting each other. But yeah, if you're under 25, God, it says old in there. I'm sorry, everyone. It should say Trafford. If you're under 25 and in Trafford, you can email me, and you can just have a chat about coming along. I can answer any questions people have about the group. So like, what's it like? How many people are generally there? And yeah, stuff like that. Does that answer your question, Maddie?
Yeah, that's fine. Also, I think Freya's asked a question in the chat as well.
Ooh. Could you ask me the question, Maddie? Is that okay? I just can't see the chat right now.
Chat. Okay, let's see. So Freya asks, how long have you worked at the Proud Trust?
So I've worked at the Proud Trust now for about eight years, but I've been involved for about 12 years. So it's been quite a lot of my life, actually. So it's not an uncommon thing in youth work that you might be part of a youth group that you went to when you were younger, or that you volunteered at when you were younger, and that was my experience with the Proud Trust. So I volunteered at the youth groups, and then became a member of staff, and yeah, have been doing that for about 8 years now.
So if anyone else has any more questions, if you want to put them in the chat. But other than that, thank you very much for giving the speech. Even being by myself, I still learned a lot. Oh, and also, put any plans for another group or any other sessions?
Mm-hmm. What kind of group or sessions, Caroline? Tell
Maybe
me
like
more.
active. So say if people can't make it on a Wednesdays, for example, like Trafford Youth Cabinet or any other youth groups, there are other options they can go or things like that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks, Maddie, and thanks, Caroline. So I think if for example, yeah, if you had a like a kind of time conflict, we do have like a central Manchester group. Obviously now we're online, geography doesn't kind of exist anymore. But some people who just have other commitments might come to the central Manchester group, which I also run. Or some people might come to that central group if they, maybe live in Trafford, or maybe you live, if I don't know, in Gorton, but maybe you go to like college or school in the centre of Manchester, and actually that's a lot closer for you. So what we generally say with our groups is that they're for people who live in the area, or maybe you need to go to school in the area, or maybe you access services in another area. But yeah, if anyone had a time conflict, there would be other groups that you could join.
Also on the, I think I was about to say the Saturday one, isn't the one that the alternative one for Central Manchester, that's on Saturday, isn't it? 3 till 5,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, so Tuesdays from 5:30 till 7, and Saturdays 3 till 5. So some people might just find that they do have a little bit more free time at the weekend, and there's a bit more freedom to be able to travel into central Manchester. But at the moment we run about 15 different groups. And like I said, there are some groups that we run that are based on location, to where you are, but then we've got our trans youth group. So we've got a youth group for trans, non-binary, or questioning people who are under 16, and they're called Turtles. And great name, Turtles. Then we've got a group called Femilition Squad, which is for trans young women or trans feminine young people. And then we've got Afternoon Tea, which is our 16 to 25 group for trans, non-binary, questioning young people as well. So yeah, there's I will say there's tons and tons of stuff to get involved with, and often we'll have projects on the go as well. So we've just been doing a choir with Manchester Lesbian and Gay Chorus. Like I said, I run an art group called Creative Cafe. We've also been doing like a dance group called Proud Moves as well. So yeah, I think hopefully most of the time there's something, or there should be something on at a time that people can access.
Well,
and
yeah,
and while we're online, we can just be a little bit more flexible.
Well, thank you very much. And if you have any more questions, please do contact them. The emails in the chat, of course. And yeah, so thank you very much. Millie, do you want to do the PowerPoint that we prepared earlier?
Yeah, give me just a second.
Yeah, that's fine. So basically, we just prepared a PowerPoint. It's got, I'm trying to think, well, it's just us introducing ourselves, and then it's got a quick activity of matching, the different identities to their meanings, just for a bit more information on identities and sexualities and things like that. And yeah, and then, should we get into it then?
Yeah, give me just a second.
It's fine. Oh yeah, you can tell that the people who did this are definitely LGBTQ plus from the style of PowerPoint.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I love this. I've just been watching She-Ra. I'm on.
Oh my god, it's so good.
I'm on season 5. It's getting exciting.
Oh my god, you are going to be happy with the ending. It's great. As in, that was kind of my gay awakening. It's fabulous.
Sorry,
it's a great show. Okay, so obviously LGBTQ plus. So we just did this. This is all our favorite gay or bi or lesbian or trans characters or non-binary characters. So the one in the top left is non-binary. I mean, that's Double Trouble. Obviously, he's fabulous. Or they're fabulous. Sorry. And then we have people like Petra Solano, who's bisexual. We have Cara and Asami, who are bisexual. We have go on.
we've got Cara Delevingne, who Magic you might know as from being Suicide Squad. She's like a feminist lesbian icon. And then of course there's Alison and Emily from Prisoners Lives, which some of you may have watched. And then I can bear. Oh, there's 2 characters which on the TV show you've watched, but I have not. On the bottom right.
Yep, that's Legend of Korra, and those 2 are bisexual. We have Elliot Page kind of towards the bottom right as well. So we just have a great selection of LGBTQ plus characters. Obviously, we've already said this. We said this at the beginning. Sorry, we didn't know when we were going to be doing this. So yeah.
To introduce ourselves anyway, again, in case anyone's forgotten.
Okay. I mean, yeah. So we're both 13. We both identify as queer. Maddie identifies as bisexual. I identify as just queer. And we're both cisgender females to use she, her pronouns.
And yeah, that's pretty much the introduction.
So we kind of have a quiz because we just want to make sure, like, to just check what you know and what you've learned. And if you don't know anything, it's just kind of interesting. So it's just kind of so we have a couple of slides of them, and it's just kind of matching the term with the definition. And it's just kind of, you can just write, if you want to write them down, you can, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. Just obviously, yeah.
And yeah. So if you can just look through any, so if you on each slide, I think we've got about 3.
We have 3 on each slide.
3 on each slide, and then just match them up to what you think they are, and then at the end we can go through them. And yeah. So on the first one, we've got gender, sexuality, and romantic orientation. And then just to make it easier, so you don't have to write out the full definition, we've just they're numbered and lettered them. So you can just match the letters together. Oh, wow. Okay. 1, 2, 3, yeah.
And obviously anyone correct us if they don't necessarily agree with any of the definitions or anything like that, obviously correct us.
Yeah, all we've used is mainly Urban Dictionary, Google, and then also just knowing what we already know.
Just to get kind of clear definitions.
Also, if you have anything extra you want to add on, say there's something that not many people know about it, you want to add it on, if you can put it in the chat, and then we can mention it. And yeah. Wait, Millie, did you edit it so then it shows the answers afterwards?
Yeah, I did.
I was about to say, thinking, I don't know if I don't want to mess it up then. I want to try and do this now as well. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So, do you think I can? So those are the answers. I don't know when I showed them. So obviously your gender is your mode of self-reflection or ID dealing with how you see or don't see yourself in terms of sex. Sorry, no, what? No, I've done this wrong.
Yeah, you matched them up wrong.
Damn it, I've done this wrong. Well, okay, I think we're here. I think this one's right. This one's fine.
Everyone who put answers in the chat got it right. I'll just put it that way.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Sorry, I completely and utterly messed that one up. Sorry.
Hey, no, at least
this one is right. I checked this one. This one is definitely right. And I believe the first one is pronounced as Zay or Zare, although obviously correct me if I'm wrong.
That's how I've learned it, but I don't want to mess it up though. Zare, I think, because it's like he or she, but it's if you just put Z in front, so it's Z, and then there is in Zare. That's just how I've learned it. Or Zare could be. I don't know. If someone knows how to, then please put it in the chat.
Face palm.
In the chat.
I think generally it can be both.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Or both, or probably other things as well. But yeah, I think you're right. It's kind of like he, her, or like they, them, like Zzer.
Yeah. And yeah, that's also if you're not gender fluid, you could also use they can't speak they and the as well. Okay, let's see. Yeah.
Okay, I think I assume everyone got those right. So obviously Zzer or Zzer is for an uncommonly used pronoun, or I don't know, not very commonly used, although I'm assuming if Hebe knows people that use it, that's awesome. So they're uncommonly used pronouns that can be used in reference to a non-binary or gender fluid person. Ace or asexual is someone who does not or rarely experiences sexual attraction, and non-binary or MB is a name for someone who doesn't identify as male or female. So this one.
So I hope the writing's clear, because I tried to like highlight the ones that were over darker colours. So if you can't read them.
Yeah, and this one's right too.
Honestly, I think the majority of people who were in this meeting are probably well educated on this.
Oh, I would assume so, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's still good to know. Maybe if any of you learned something from me. No, don't worry. My neighbours are doing building work, so I've attempted to like put stuff in front of it, but it's not helped.
Sorry, I have to go for just a minute. I will be back in just a minute.
Do you want to go on to the next slide? So then at least they can do it while you're gone. There we go. Okay. Oh, these ones are, I think, the most standard. If you think of like the most standard terms you think when you think of LGBTQ+, homosexual, gay, lesbian, bi, trans, those are standard ones. But then, of course, it's not. But also, people should not forget that there's. Oh, you're welcome, Laura. But it's also not to forget. There's so many others. Because also, there's one thing. There's a big misconception. Just even if you're part of LGBTQ+, it does not mean you have to identify as a label. It is a spectrum for both gender and sexuality. Meaning,
sorry, my mother, brother, and sister just got home.
No, that's fine. It's just to remember that even if you identify as part of LGBT+, you might not identify with a specific label within it. It's a spectrum. So just saying you're queer or you are part of LGBT+, that should be enough to say your identity, or just say you don't even have to say your identity if you're not comfortable. That's 100% fine. But you shouldn't have to. If you have to develop more and people are uncomfortable not knowing, I think that's when they're being homophobic, transphobic, depending on whether they're asking about gender, sexuality, romantic orientation, etc. Also, to be educated on when you say that's homophobic, is a lot of people use homophobic for anything to do with LGBTQ+, and homophobic mainly refers to something, being scared of or not liking those.
It's not scared of, but it's being prejudiced against people, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, so not to use homophobic for everything if there's something that's against LGBT+. It's like say someone says something that's transphobic, it means it's against someone who's trans, who originally I can't speak. The gender that they were assigned at birth is not the one that they currently identify with. There we go. I got that originally. And yeah. So and everyone in the chat, they see everyone. This one's I think the most standard. And Millie, do you want to move on to the next slide? Transgender, cisgender. Yes, cisgender. I remember I was at school today. I'm just filling up time while people write down their answers. I was at school today, and someone said, "Oh, I don't identify as cis." And "Oh, you trans?" And then he said, "No." I'm thinking, but you're not cis, and you're not trans. And then he said, "Well, I'm a male." I'm thinking, "Oh, well, is that what you signed at birth?" "Yes." "So you're cis?" And he said, "No, I'm not cis." And it's just people not understanding the terms that even if you're not LGBTQ+, still the terms that refer to the gender and sexuality you are, and getting them right. It's like when people not knowing that. So they're like, I'm cisgender because I identify as the sex I was assigned at birth. But except a lot of people don't know that it's called cisgender. They just think I'm a male, female, etc. And yeah, it's just knowing your terms, even if your term is not part of LGBTQ+, just knowing them makes other people feel more comfortable. And yeah, and literally again, everyone in the chat have gotten it right. And yeah, pretty much. Okay, now we would like what?
We would like a discussion segment, and obviously no one is under any obligation to share any of their experiences if they don't want to. But if anyone did want to share their experiences as an LGBTQ plus person, this is kind of a point when you're free to do so if you do so choose.
So you can put them in the chat, and then if you want to put them in the chat but not for us to read them out, then that's fine. And that's fine.
Sorry, in the question and answer, not in the chat.
Just say, wait, I'm going to have to leave. Oh no, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for coming. But yeah, thank you. But yeah, if you do want to put your experiences in the chat, that'd be great. If you don't want to or don't have any, that's
absolutely no pressure to.
100%. We're just here if you want to share.
And this is if you are an LGBTQ plus person, because we're not assuming that everyone here is.
Yeah.
Or it's also with people experiences seeing people who are LGBTQ plus people, that because that helps too.
And what you did in the situation, because I always find that interesting to see how people who aren't in LGBTQ plus community, how they react. The biphobia, panphobia in schools is frequent. 100% agreed. I had biphobia. No, that sounds like a sickness. Well, it is technically. But like there was this person in my year. I don't want to name him because anyone knows him. But I remember, I know they were just doing it to annoy me because they know I'm bi. But they were just saying, a bunch of, oh, there's only two genders, the standard biphobia, homophobia, transphobia, just doing that. And honestly, I don't think people think, even if they think it's just to annoy someone, it can still be incredibly offensive. But yeah, it's incredibly common. Because actually, while everyone, if you want to put any, my friend is pan, and they go to, are you attracted to pans? Yes, that is. Oh no, I'm just like, I love relating. Yeah. But honestly, one of my experiences where I think it was mainly over lockdown. Like when I first came out, there was literally no other than people saying, "Are you sure it's not a phase?" But there wasn't, that much, which I was very shocked about because I was expecting a lot more, backlash. But honestly, that's quite sad that I was expecting that. It's true at the same time. But nothing came out. It was only at lockdown that a bunch of stuff started coming out. People started calling me. I don't really use. I'm just going to put trigger warnings in case for anyone who might find this offensive. Calling names like fag, bent, and all sorts of offensive terms. That even though that hit me thinking, wait, people are actually being biphobic and homophobic. I didn't realize I knew people who were. But it's kind of like a realization. And even if some of them didn't offend me, because honestly, I did not care what people thought. I was all kind of shocked to realize that I thought I didn't know anyone who was homophobic, biphobic, but then as stuff starts to come out, you realize, even if they don't intend to be, because a lot of people think that because you have a friend who's part of the LGBTQ plus community, or say you're a person of color, then they think, oh, I've got this person, so I can't be racist, transphobic, homophobic.
I think that's a really important point as well. Like if you say something to one person and they're not offended by it, it doesn't mean that another person isn't going to be offended by it. So you kind of have to, in some situations, you do have to play it by ear and actually ask people. Like ask people for their pronouns, ask people like if they ask you not to use a word, then don't use it.
Yeah. And it's like, I remember when I was in this group chat, and I remember because these group of boys, like they always just message in their chat. Like someone actually says that it's very true though. There's no one in the world that is 100% straight, solid straight. That just doesn't exist. And I think it's a lot of people thinking that, oh, I use it in my friendship group. We joke about it all the time. I call, all my friends fags all the time and we just joke about it, you're gay. I'm thinking, yeah, I suppose if none of you are offended, but then don't bring that habit into other situations. Like I remember when I can't remember what I put in the chat, I just said hi or something, and they said shut up fag, and I'm thinking, I literally just said hi, but it's because I'm bi, and they come back at me. But yeah, it's just that to think, because then everyone started saying, well, it doesn't offend me, and it doesn't offend them. Well, yes, but it offends me, so don't use it, please. It's just
well, it's 6:30, so I think it's time to kind of try and wrap up. So unless anyone else wants to say anything, I think we've said all we need to.
Let's start wrap up. Yeah. Okay, so someone's actually literally everything in the chat we both agree with. But yeah, well, thank you everyone for coming. For those who did,
thank you.
And yeah, we just thank you very much for coming. We hope you enjoyed, maybe learned something. And yeah, we just hope you had a good time. And yeah, thank you very much everyone for coming. Okay, bye everyone.
Bye. Well done, you two.